All right, we're back live on the show floor at Forrester B2B Summit. Thank you again to the Forrester team for making this possible. We've had some amazing interviews with Forrester analysts, with some B2B ROI award winners, and here now with Ed Grossman. I'm just reading your LinkedIn profile, Ed. It says Chief Data Nerd. That's your title that you gave yourself at Navigate IQ, also co-founder of Activate, illustrious career in B2B go-to-market. Ed, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate all the work you do, and it's great to see this podcast here.
It is fun to be here, and I'm glad we were able to make this work, that we get you on here as well. I asked you what you wanted to talk about, and you had one word that could take us somewhere between 3 and 12 days, and that's attribution. And there's so many different angles on like attribution in terms of like, why is it a problem? Why are we getting it wrong? But what fascinates you about attribution as a problem in B2B?
It's a great question. Martha Schwartz and I founded Activate a few years ago, 15 years ago. And part of our philosophy, what was driving us then, was this idea, this kind of risk abatement that we saw in marketers. Every marketer wants to de-risk their marketing budget. They want to make their spend more productive, more useful. And over time, moving away from, banner ads and billboards to demand gen and nurture and things that have a knowable return has been very popular, with its own risks, of course.
Yep.
But the motivation there is one around risk and efficiency. And one of the things that we think about, and that is measurement. How do I know if I'm making progress?
Right.
And one of the biggest barriers for people to be kind of maximally efficient across their entire marketing budget is they can't today reliably measure the effectiveness, the influence, the attribution, whatever words you want to use. They don't really know as well as they would like how well the various things I'm doing are affecting not just opens and clicks and cost per acquisition, but following through to opportunity creation, opportunity wins, and revenue. And so that's just fascinating. From the same motivation for Activate is here at Navigate IQ, and that is to help people be more efficient with their spend so they can be more productive.
I would argue that in many cases we're measuring the wrong things and that we're trying to tell the wrong story. And I've talked to a lot of companies that struggle with attribution that can't even articulate to me like what data they're prioritizing or what story they're telling. When we talk about data and narrative, do you agree that those are important? What are the components of the foundational elements that you need to have in place to have a chance at a strong attribution story?
I have a couple of minds of this. I don't know if I'll win this overall argument or where our industry will go, but I actually think attribution is the wrong thing to measure. And we all talk about it. I don't know if we'll ever displace it, but what we're trying to do is with attribution, we're trying to assign a dollar value to the thing I did. I did this thing. How much was it worth? And I want to know that dollar so that I can then go make decisions around that. So I can move my money to the places that have the most productivity per dollar.
Right.
But you don't actually need to know the dollar value of the action to know whether or not it was useful. And I think if we look to other areas of science, we see they're not, you can't determine today running what the value of that on your health outcomes will be, but you do know it's valuable. Or conversely, eating too much sugar or drinking whatever health activities or even your genetics, we know they have effect. We don't have to assign a number to know that there's a difference in your risk profile. There's a difference in your outcomes if you have these things. And so I think we can learn from the other sciences to say, even if we don't attribute a specific dollar value to that marketing activity, we can know whether some activities are more highly associated with producing the positive outcomes we want to see versus others. And certainly we can, rather than argue about how much dollar it was and whether sales actually is worth more or marketing is worth more, we could say, why don't we just stop doing the things that are clearly not producing revenue?
Right.
That'd be a great first step.
Right.
If we could do that, and maybe then we'll come back to the revenue attribution dollar amount. Or conversely, let's look at the things that are clearly moving the needle and let's do more of those. And so, again, I don't know that I'll move the industry or even really trying to move us off this discussion of attribution, but I do think it's the wrong thing to be looking at.
I think it's a great way of thinking about it, because if you could take that off the table, too often we associate attribution with credit. and it becomes a political exercise inside an organization. I think a lot of companies that are here at Forrester, they are big companies selling complex products. And so we're talking about months, quarters, if not years of sales cycle length. Let's not pretend we can narrow this down to, oh, that digital channel or that white paper download that day. Almost all the people in this room have to have a body of work mentality, right? So trying to figure out what gets credit, like unilateral credit, is ridiculous.
Absolutely. We've launched Navigate IQ. We build dashboards. We aggregate customer data to understand this.
Yep.
And we purposely do not show an attribution dollar. We've got it. We could choose is it 1/10 of revenue or whatever number you'd want to choose, but we avoid that. We don't want to get caught in that trap of credit, as you note.
Right.
But we can begin to see, oh, look at that. Deals are not closing unless they have certain buyers on the journey, or unless we have a certain set of touches, or we're not seeing accounts really qualifying themselves for conversion unless we see 15 people from the account. We can learn a lot about how to improve our effectiveness as marketers without having to get into an argument with the salesperson about the value of the credit.
Yeah. One of the other challenges companies have often when they're trying to figure out their attribution story is a culture change to get there. To realize it's not going to be like marketing versus sales, sales versus marketing. That body of work and thinking about it holistically requires an organization, not just the go-to-market teams, but the executives, the board, all the people that are overseeing where the money comes and how the money gets displayed. It's way more complex than people want it to be. And I think that's an inconvenient truth that is just a reality in marketing. How does that cloud or maybe help focus the attribution story companies are telling internally?
I do think it's a cloud in part because marketers are walking in saying, I want to know the value of this so I can argue for budget to go. If this is worth $1, then I should be able to spend $1 on it, right? And so that's where they're starting and they're getting clouded. I think conversely, we know that if a CMO can go in and say, hey, look, here's the top 10 deals to the salesperson, to the financial person, their CFO, their CRO, and say, here's how I supported that deal over the past 2 years. Here's how that name got in the database. Here's all the times I touched it. Here's how many of those people you spoke to and how many more you didn't speak to. If I could do that for the top 10 deals, I'm part of an effective conversation about why and how we're helping to support what you're doing, as opposed to an argument about what it's worth. We want to talk about where am I supporting you. I think the other piece is the promise of AI that will help us with this. And I don't mean it's going to help us figure out the attribution number, because I'm going to stick with my guns on not wanting to focus on a dollar value.
Yep.
But rather, if you can look at every deal, at every account, and every touch, and every buyer title, and you can pass that to a large language model and begin to ask questions like, what marketing activities should I stop?
Right.
Well, we know the data's in there. We could look at every deal, every webcast, which lead gen provider has the least number of deals associated with them. Let's just cut them off the buy. That's the place to start.
Right.
And I think AI will help us begin to find those trends, not because it's impossibly complex, just because it's a huge amount of labor to go through all that data and look at it. Can I look at the topics of content that tend to be more highly associated with me winning deals, so that I could see if accounts dealing with this content, I'm probably going to close them.
Yeah. I think the way you guys are thinking about attribution is refreshing, and I'm excited to see you guys grow this opportunity. Talking today on Sales Pipeline Radio, live from the Forrester B2B Summit Marketplace floor with Ed Grossman, the Chief Data Nerd, his title, not mine, for Navigate IQ, Chief Strategy Officer at Activate. And I think what the world really wants to know, Ed, how does a philosophy and music theory major end up doing all of this? Like, I did not know that until this morning. That's what you studied at Boston College. You were studying towards a PhD in philosophy of religion as well. A lot of us in B2B didn't necessarily study B2B in college, but that's a unique set of stuff. I'm very interested.
No one reads LinkedIn that far down. You can scroll all the way down. I have no idea. No, I think that taking apart complex problems, which happens in music, and it happens in philosophy, is important for business.
Yeah.
And I am by nature a curious person. And so when someone says to me, I have this problem, I want to know more.
Yeah.
And helping marketers get to the bottom of these questions. What's working?
Yeah.
Is this moving the needle? Can I tell if, for instance, what does my idealized buyer team look like? I'll give you another one. What real correlation does intent have to an account becoming an opportunity or a deal closing. We know what maybe an intent provider hopes it does, and they will have some good case studies.
Yeah.
But if we looked across every deal, what would it actually correlate to?
Yeah.
I'm curious about these things, and I think that by exploring them with customers, not with a goal, Navigate IQ doesn't have an axe to grind. We're not trying to push leads or webcasts or intent, or we just want to know what's happening and try to get to the bottom of it the best we can. We think that'll be a real way to help marketers.
That analogy, I think, is really fascinating because I think about philosophy and think about music and just how complex both of those get. Like for anyone that loves music, like you can experience something that really tugs at your emotions and can change the way you feel. Music theory is incredibly complex.
I have a friend who studied computer science in college and is a programmer, engineer. He's a bit older. When he was getting out of college, there really weren't computer science majors at most universities, but the computer science jobs were typically recruited from music theory majors because the music theory structures can be a little mathematical, but they also flow over time like program needs to. And so there's a lot of complexity there in music if you like that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's very connected. It's complexity moving over time. And it's actually, I'm not going to say music theory and marketing attribution are the same thing, but they're pretty close.
Well, they're not the same thing, but I think the analogies in terms of complexity are fascinating to me. And it's not surprising, given that you said that, like why trying to find some like insights and direction out of that complexity is interesting to you. So sitting here at Forrester, so far today, I feel like this conference has talked about buying journeys, buying groups, a little bit of AI, a lot of sales, marketing, product teams, creating better alignment amongst each other. If we're sitting here in 2 years, the same conference, what do you think we're talking about? What do you think the focus areas from the content?
Well, I hope that we're talking about the non-trivial impact that AI is having.
Yep.
Beyond you personalize an email and you changed a quarter of my webpage, and an agent that had some interesting ideas. But I hope we're talking about the way that AI is truly identifying actions for us to change, is replacing or improving some of our own actions and outcomes. I think AI is a huge boon for our entire industry. It will not take away jobs, but add jobs. So I hope that, but I don't know. I remain unconvinced that the use cases, the actual use cases that I see real marketers engaging with AI remain pretty few and far between.
I'm with you on a number of those fronts, including like I have no friggin' idea. I think we're both old enough to remember Mary Meeker, right? Who used to write the Internet Trends Report. And there was one year she came out and said, there will be a time not far from now when mobile is where people start, where that will be the primary device and we need to start having a mobile first mentality. I remember reading that and thinking like, that's nuts. There's no way. Yeah. And now she's 100% right, but we take it for granted. And I think AI 2 years from now is going to be somewhat similar. It is going to be revolutionary. It is going to change a lot about how we interact with the world and in the workplace. And in 2 years, we will take it for granted. We will be on to the next thing. And those that lean in on it will be better employees, will be better professionals, will be better humans as a part of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think about the things that, to your point about Mary Meeker, the things that mobile and the internet combined enabled that we didn't even conceive of. And we think about Uber and Airbnb.
Yep.
The houses existed, the cars existed, cab companies, all these things existed. But this moment happened when you could carry that device with you and you could communicate with anybody who had a car. And so Uber was born.
Yep.
There will be entire new industries, ecosystems, software platforms, tools that we use, ways of marketing that we have not even really conceived of yet. If AI can deliver on this promise, I hope it does. We'll see.
Well, I think, I would argue AI has already delivered just in terms of helping us understand like what's possible. And I think about the people that have created some of those leaps in innovation and they're exponential thinkers. Yes. I mean, Mary Meeker among them, to be able to see what's in front of them and say, this is leading to something that very, very few other people can see. Now, what we forget is that many of them are wrong, right? For every Mary Meeker talking about that, there's other people that thought other things were going to happen that we're not talking about here because they didn't happen. And so we don't remember their names. We remember Mary's name, right?
Yeah, survivor bias for Mary Meeker on that one.
Yes, exactly.
So you're right. And sitting right around us, there are a number of booths that say, in fact, almost every booth says AI somewhere in it. And so there will be some survivors, and we will agree that they were brilliant in their time, but we'll probably forget about the 80% of people who missed it.
Well, and there's so many different angles of it. Like I'm staring across at a booth that says that they are the very first casual AI marketing intelligence platform. What is casual AI? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out someday. Maybe I'll be like I'm sitting. Maybe this is like my 2025 version of mobile first. It's like everyone's gonna be talking about casual AI. I hope not, but it could be. We don't know. I'm happy we're not talking about social selling anymore. It's just part of selling. It's better. It's better now.
Yeah.
Ed, thank you so much for joining us today. Ed Grossman, where can people learn more about Navigate IQ?
NavigateIQ.ai. Sorry to say that there after our whole discussion. But yeah, www.navigateiq.ai. And Matt, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Shout out to Martha over here.
Martha
Making sure
Schwartz,
we're saying the right things.
co-founder of both Activate and Navigate IQ.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed, for being here.
Thank you.